From Inc.com, this is the Inc. Productivity Tip. Expert opinions, valuable insight, and helpful advice from today's top business coaches, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs. The word transparency has become a leadership buzzword, especially in remote and high-growth environments. Leaders say they value it. Companies claim to prioritize it. However, in practice, most organizations either overshare, undershare, or misunderstand it entirely. In a recent conversation with Carly Lundergan, Chief People Officer at Energy, one idea stood out. Transparency is not about saying everything to everybody. It's about being honest about the decisions that affect people and the reasons behind them, and getting that wrong comes at a cost. Research from PwC highlights that 87% of employees said they are more likely to trust companies that are transparent, but only 30% said they actually trust their employer. The gap isn't intention. It is execution. One of the biggest misconceptions leaders have is equating transparency with full disclosure. Carly explained that effective transparency requires judgment. Leaders need to understand their audience, the context, and the impact of what they share. Not every piece of information is useful or appropriate for every employee. Oversharing can create confusion, anxiety, or even erode confidence in leadership. When the oversharing is personal, one team member's opinion of another, it doesn't add clarity. It clouds judgment and quietly gets in the way of execution. Transparency done well creates clarity, not noise. And that means translating complex business decisions into relevant insights employees can act on, rather than flooding teams with raw information. Many leaders treat transparency as a one-time event, an all-hands meeting, a big announcement, or a reactive update during change. But employees don't build trust in moments. They build it through patterns. Now, Carly emphasized that transparency shows up in the day-to-day, how managers communicate decisions, how feedback is delivered, and how consistent leadership behaviors are over time. And research supports this. A study by Harvard Business Review found that consistent communication and predictability in leadership behavior are key drivers of trust within organizations. In other words, transparency isn't what leaders say once. Instead, it's what they reinforce repeatedly, not only through their words, but also in their actions. Posters on the wall don't build culture. Behavior does. Carly described culture as the alignment between stated values and actual behaviors. Transparency, like integrity, matters only if employees see it in action. For example, are leaders clear about how decisions are made? Do managers explain the why behind changes? Are employees given context or just directives? The strongest leaders go one step further, explaining not just why a decision was made, but what it cost. So, something like this. We chose speed here, which means X takes a back seat this quarter. Or we're holding headcount flat to protect everyone's roles, which means current teams carry more for the next 2 quarters. When transparency is embedded into everyday interactions, it strengthens alignment across the organization. When it's not, cultural cracks start to form, especially during periods of growth. There's a tension every leader faces: how to be open while still protecting confidential or sensitive information. Carly stated that strong leaders don't avoid this tension. They manage it. It shows up in the hard moments, not just the easy ones. Anyone can be transparent when numbers are up. The real test is the missed quarter, the reorg nobody wanted, the decision with your name on it. That's when people are watching to see whether the transparency was real or just a good times habit. That means being honest about what can't be shared, while still providing enough context to maintain trust. For example, saying, "I can't share details yet, but here's what I can tell you and what it means for you," is far more effective than silence or vague messaging. Employees don't expect leaders to share everything. They expect them to be intentional. Perhaps the most overlooked part of transparency is this: it's not just about speaking, it's about understanding. Carly emphasized the importance of approaching conversations with curiosity, seeking to understand before trying to be understood. This shift changes everything. When leaders listen first, they tailor communication to what employees need, not what leaders assume they need. And that's where transparency becomes powerful. Transparency isn't about volume, it's about value. The leaders who get it right don't just share more, they communicate with clarity and intention, reinforce messages consistently, align words with behavior, and listen more than they speak. Because in today's workplace, especially in remote and high-growth environments, transparency isn't a soft skill, it's a performance driver. Most leaders already intend to be transparent. The ones who win are the ones who execute it every day. Get it right, and you don't just build trust. You also build teams that stop guessing and start executing. That's how you build a company that wins. That's all for today. This expert opinion was written by Netta Jenkins, the founder of HIC, a global leadership performance firm. For more expert opinions from today's top business coaches and thought leaders, go to inc.com/lead. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another helpful tip from Inc.